Just how on earth can you connect Watchmen to Bullet Train through the tropes alone? We've got swans, superhero modesty pouches, rope darts, famous cafes, and Irish mixed martial artists. Join me, Danny Baker, as we connect Zack Snyder's Watchmen to 2022's Bullet Train in 6 degrees. Just the tropes, fam. Some spoilers ahead, okay, but mostly for older films, don't worry too much. So, we're trying a new format here on 6 degrees. We're not going to make this too complicated. We're going to connect Watchmen to Bullet Train through 6 steps. Only through the big thematic tropes that connect the movies. That's it. No other rules. Again, if you can do it in less, it don't matter, okay? Along the way, we'll talk through some of the other smaller tropes. We'll have some laughs, all that good stuff. Okay, ready?
It's showtime.
Alright, Watchmen. Zack Snyder's adaptation of Alan Moore's graphic novel, probably one of the most famous graphic novels around. The film had been going through development hell, originally going to be made by 20th Century Fox, back in 1991. Over the years, Terry Gilliam was going to direct, as was Michael Bay and Darren Aronofsky. Warner Brothers finally offered it to Zack after 300 had impressed them. Also, it has an excellent TV adaptation, very recommended. The plot revolves around the murders of prominent superheroes, and the film is dark, it's really violent. It's actually a very good example of a film adaptation being loads more violent than the source material, and I bloody loved it. There's loads of other tropes that are par for the course of an adaptation. You've got trimming the fat from the source material so that stupid viewers of the movies can handle it. The Wanted movie trimmed a load of stuff about the fraternity. They were evil in the original source material. There was super science, alien technologies, magical powers, and no loom. In Watchmen here, they removed the giant squid and a load of the subplots around other characters. There's also the addition of stuff that us dumb movie lovers would enjoy. Much like how in Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, they added some extra peril in the flying car scene, very different from the book. In Watchmen, it's the extended fight scenes, loads longer than the graphic novel, and stupid old me absolutely enjoyed them thoroughly. We get a lot less Dr. Manhattan penis in the movie, it would just be distracting. A classic bit of modesty in the adaptation trope. Mostly necessary recently in the MCU, Wanda Maximoff's comic outfit is just ridiculous. Back to Manhattan and his body, blimey. That is the body of Greg Plitt, a bodybuilder who unfortunately died at the age of 37 in 2015. Next up, we've got the freak lab accident trope. The dangers of working with such complicated things, you know, and that's how Dr. Manhattan, the only real superpower being in this story, gets created. This is the trope of many superhero stories, which are basically all movies now. The Hulk, Spider-Man, Lizard, Electro. Spider-Man does love a freak accident. So we're doing just the tropes today, people, and the big thematic trope from Watchmen that connects us to our next movie is its non-linear nature. This film does not play out in order. Loads of flashbacks, just like the graphic novel. Very popular with some filmmakers, Mr. Nolan. But the film that does this for our next connection is Kill Bill. So this is Tarantino's 4th movie, conceived by Quentin with Uma Thurman while actually filming Pulp Fiction. The former wrote it while spending time with the latter and her kid, and it's a classic revenge story. The bride was left for dead by her assassin group and she wants vengeance. It had to be split into 2 parts as the runtime was 4 hours long, but for today we're treating it as one movie, alright? So despite its non-linear structure, they actually filmed it in sequence, and loads of it is inspired by classic martial arts cinema, particularly the yellow outfit the bride wears, looking very similar to Bruce Lee in his last movie Game of Death, where he famously fights Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Now Tarantino doesn't do many bad movies, and this one is one of his best for me, especially given my deep love for fight scenes, and this is chock full of them. My favourite probably being the Bride versus Go-Go, because I just love a rope dart fight. Romeo Must Die, Jet Li, you can't go better than that. Next trope up is an animated cutscene, where a live action film cuts to animation for a key bit of backstory. Another Harry Potter example here from A Deathly Hallows. This is one of my favourite bits of Kill Bill, mainly because I love a bit of anime, showing how Oren Ishii came to be who she is, and it's phenomenal and it fits perfectly.
At 11, she got her revenge.
Now, Tarantino's a known foot lover. So weirdly, we've actually got the trope around foot abuse. Foot abuse in the movies, one of the most iconic being Home Alone. No, it's Die Hard, obviously. But wait, that nail. Maybe it is Home Alone. Anyway, the bride has to walk across the desert barefoot. She gets smacked on the foot by Elle, and it's a great trope to get your audience wincing. We've got a main character with no name here, another great trope, until the second movie, obviously. Much like the narrator in Fight Club, or literally nameless in Hero, played by my all-time hero, Jet Li. This is not the last mention of him today.
My man.
In Kill Bill Volume 1, we just know Uma Thurman as the bride, with her name being even bleeped out at points.
Hi, honey. I'm Mr. Steve.
There are plenty of clues though throughout.
One ticket to Tokyo, please.
Another instalment of the punishment being way worse than the crime trope, as featured in episode 2 of 6 Degrees.
That's how I roll.
Also seen in Drag Me to Hell. So just for denying a loan extension, you go to actual hell. Come on. In Kill Bill Volume 2, Pai Mei, who trains up a lot of the assassins, grabs Elle's eye for calling him an old fool. Chill out, Pai Mei. He killed and burned a monastery for a guy not returning a nod as well. What a dick. I love the next one, a dramatic drop. When a character hears or figures out something that's so dramatic, they lose control of their hands. Either played for a fucking killer twist in The Usual Suspects, or pure comedy, like in Spider-Man No Way Home, when you find out your best friend is Spider-Man. Here it happens off screen, so it's subtle, but when the bride asks for Hattori Hanzo by name, you can just hear it in the background.
Hattori Hanzo.
So what's connecting Kill Bill to our next movie? Well, David Carradine's Bill is a great example of the corruptor trope, someone who just makes everyone around them go bad. Much like a banana in a fruit bowl, if you will. And one of the most iconic modern examples of this is Alonzo Harris in Training Day. This is Antoine Fuqua's third movie, and it has a tour de force in Alonzo Harris. Denzel got his Best Actor Oscar finally. He's based on Ray Perez, who is a massively dirty cop in real life. Alonzo's number plate on his car is actually ORP 967, Officer Ray Perez, born in 1967 for you film fans. The film follows a day where Ethan Hawke's Jake follows Alonzo around to learn his ways, and it's tense. It's got some great scenes, particularly my favourite with the gangbangers and Ethan Hawke, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
My shit. Washed in, bro, big time!
The cafe in the beginning of the movie, which was incidentally the first scene that was shot, is the same one that was used in Seven, 500 Days of Summer, Gone in 60 Seconds, Ghost World, Old School, Catch Me When You Can, to name a few. Trope time, we've got a Batman Gambit, which is a plan that basically revolves entirely around people doing exactly what you'd expect them to do, like at the start of The Dark Knight, ironically. I never joke it is a big deal, but come on! Pulling out of the bank right as those school buses go past, that's not going to happen. In Training Day, there's actually two of them. First is Alonzo needing Jake to take some drugs in order to frame him. And then the second is a smaller one, but it's with the gangbangers needing Jake to remove the bullets from his gun so they can jump him. Poor old Jake just getting taken advantage of left, right and centre. Another trope here we've got is an ad-libbed line ending up being massively iconic. It's always nice when a big line isn't something planned and okayed by the studio. We've got some great ones in history like "Here's Johnny" and Hannibal Lecter's weird sucking thing. Here it's
King Kong ain't got shit on me!
And that was an ad-lib from Denzel, just getting right into the character. Next is a director messing with an actor to get a more realistic response. One of the most famous examples being the directors of the Blair Witch, absolutely fucking with their actors. No thank you.
Go fucking go!
Here again in the card game with the gangsters. Can you tell I love that scene? Fuqua was feeding them lines and telling them things to do to further confuse Ethan Hawke, just to get a genuine reaction out of him. Done to slightly more sinister effect with Adrian Lin in 9.5 Weeks, which we discussed in the first ever 6 Degrees episode. A familiar one here next, The Broken Pedestal. A character puts someone on a pedestal, basically worshipping them, only for them to disappoint. Do you know what? I'm going to let Sergeant Nicholas Angel tell you exactly what happens.
I got beaten up a lot when I was young, but it didn't stop me. I wanted to be like Uncle Derek.
He sounds like a good bloke.
Actually, he was arrested for selling drugs to students.
What a
Jake is loving Alonzo's vibe, but uh-oh, it turns out he's out to screw you, Jake. A staple of so many films and a very popular and well-known trope is Chekhov's gun. Basically, a seemingly insignificant item or action that ends up being crucial to the plot. If you're going to show a gun, that gun needs to go off at some point. There are so many examples of this.
Excuse me, what are you guys doing here in the middle of the street?
Well, I'm putting these chickens in crates and stacking them right here. Jim's job is to make sure we always have plenty of watermelons.
Weird. Yeah, you gotta wonder if this is gonna pay off later on.
But let me treat you to a Hot Fuzz doubleheader with the swan that features at the start of the film and then pops up at the back seat right at the end. Here is the wallet that Jake picks up. It saves his life in clearly my favourite scene, but trust me, there are other good ones in the movie. So Alonzo is someone who has definitely adhered to a big thematic trope in cinema. He's a cop, he's up against bad guys, etc, etc, and eventually he becomes a ruddy bloody bad guy. Famously, basically the plot of Mean Girls.
Buddy, you're not pretending anymore, you're plastic. Cold, shiny, hard plastic.
And also features heavily in our next film, the legendary
Terminator 2, Judgment Day.
In the movie, we see Sarah Connor, in a less absolute way, become that she was up against. A killing machine who is going to kill someone for something they will do in the future. What a hypocrite, Sarah. That's exactly what they were trying to do to you. The sequel to The Terminator, obviously, one of the rare sequels that is better than the original in my humble opinion. Like what Cameron did with Aliens, the sequel is just much more action-packed rather than horror-esque. There are so many cool facts about this movie, and for 1991, the effects and action hold up. It actually won an Oscar for its effects, and it's one of only 3 sequels to win an Oscar when the originals hadn't, the others being Bourne Ultimatum and Mad Max Fury Road. The trio of Arnie, Linda Hamilton and Robert Patrick are phenomenal. Arnie learned how to do that famous gun cock on the motorbike all while controlling it. Linda Hamilton learned how to pick a lock, she had shell shock post-filming, and she had her twin sister feature in a scene where the T-1000 mimics her. And Robert Patrick, fucking Robert Patrick, what a terrifying villain. Apparently he learned how to run so well with his mouth closed, they actually had to speed up the bike that he chases John Connor on. Mental. A trope used at the start of this film is the old bait and switch, where you think the story or character is going to go a certain way, and then they switch it up at the last minute. Think the start of The Last Crusade. Oh, we see a fedora, another leather jacket. Oh wait, it's a random bloke. This is 1912, that's young Indiana. T2 is very ambiguous at the start about who is the hero and who is the killer, because we know 2 have been sent back in time for John Connor. Given Arnie was the big bad in Terminator 1, you'd think it was the same, until he tells him to get down.
Get down.
A very memorable scene for me is when the T-800 checks to see if there's an imposter on the phone, asking how's Wolfie, knowing full well that the dog is called Max.
Wolfie's fine, honey. Wolfie's just fine.
The T-1000 doesn't know though, the jig is up.
Your first appearance are dead.
In a nice flip of the kill it with fire trope from our last episode, we have kill it with ice. Like Wesley Snipes' end in The Demolition Man, or how Tony Stark beats Ironmonger in his first outing, ice can do a job. The T-1000 here gets frozen solid, then blown apart, but unfortunately they melt and come back together. Maybe you should have just picked him up and thrown him in the molten steel, mate. Excellently parodied in Hot Shots Part 2 as well. Another slight variation on a common trope here is the older hero versus the younger villain. You've got a more realistic version of this, like Rocky Balboa versus Tommy Gunn in Rocky 5, and then the less realistic version, like Logan fighting himself in the excellent Logan. And no, I'm not mentioning Gemini Man. Technically, the T-1000 is a younger, newer, sleeker model than the T-800, and it comes across in how they fight. Last trope I like in this one, when you're in prison, you get buff. See Nick Cage in Con Air and Robert De Niro in Cape Fear. Nothing else to do in prison but work out. Sarah Connor in an asylum, I know. You can see her using her bed to get jacked. So much so that they're forced to bolt it down so she can't do it anymore. So our connecting trope to our next movie is the theme of the post-apocalyptic world. Whilst we only glimpse it in T2 at the start, the whole premise is around the prevention of the apocalypse. Now, there are countless post-apocalyptic worlds in the movies. I might actually do just a 6 degrees of post-apocalyptic worlds. Standouts for me from this trope though, you've got the Mad Maxes, especially Fury Road, Equilibrium's post-apocalyptic world, is it actually though? All the decent zombie movies as well, and I reference a few of them in this little short you find up in the top right. One of my favourites though is the epic, gritty, Bong Joon-ho's first English language feature, it's Snowpiercer. Another graphic novel adaptation, so yes, Watchmen could have linked to this, but where's the fun in that? It's directed by Bong Joon-ho, and he wanted to adapt it after he picked up the book in a shop and read the entire thing while he was standing there. It was that engrossing to him. And what a fucking film it is. I mean, it's got Chris Evans with a beard. Why does he not always have a beard? I wish I could have one like that. It's got Tilda Swinton, it's got Octavia Spencer, it's got Song Kang-ho, it's got Billy Elliot himself, Jamie Bell. And it's so dark, it's well shot, and there are so many great tropes throughout. So Snowpiercer is in our post-apocalyptic world, where attempts to fix climate change have resulted in basically a snowball for Earth. The Snowpiercer train is the last humans on Earth, just going round and round on a track, and society is represented on the train as the upper class get fancy carriages up the front and the lower classes are all squeezed in squalor at the back. The best fact I learned about this movie just cements director Bong's status as a hero. Harvey Weinstein himself wanted to actually remove the scene where guards intimidate the heroes by cutting fish. He wanted more action, more Chris Evans. So director Bong said that it meant something to his dad, and it got left in, and turns out it was just a barefaced lie, but it worked. And this is one of those films where it's kind of a relief that it made $88 million on a $40 million budget. I mean, that's a success, right? Can we have more films like this, please? And there's a TV show based on it, which is supposed to be pretty good. A pretty obvious trope here is the train Snowpiercer itself. It's referred to as a rattling arc. Arcs being the standard way to save a selection of humanity when something bad has happened, like in 2012, or on a more cosmic level in Thor Ragnarok.
As long as the foundations are still strong, we can rebuild this place. It will become a haven for all peoples and aliens of the universe. Now those foundations are gone, sorry.
Some of my favourite tropes in Snowpiercer, the brainwashing of the masses with propaganda. Mostly so they can grow up not questioning the big bad people in charge. Think Equilibrium again, or V for Vendetta. It's kind of like Fox News. Don't get political, Danny. In the train we see the youth watching some propaganda about how the company in charge is basically run by a god. I love this next one, when the bad side has a big beast of an enforcer, sometimes with a smaller brother. The immediate version of this that I know and love is again Jet Li in Kiss of the Dragon. I must have watched that movie about 10 times. There's a big enforcer who's strong and a smaller one who's also bleach blonde, very stylish, but he's very small and quick, and Jet handles them though. Of course, he's Jet Li. But in Snowpiercer we have Franco the Elder, who is just basically nigh on indestructible, and his brother Franco the Younger. Elder does get to do a bit more though, as he is a monster. We have the trope of a synthetic wonder drug. Recently there's been slow-mo in Dread, makes people experience things in slow motion, like falling hundreds of meters or getting skinned. Excellent. Chronol is the drug of choice for the unfortunate souls in Snowpiercer. Mostly the upper class, they love a bit of it, but some of the lower folks do too. And ultimately it becomes a bit of a Chekhov's bomb at the end. Always an interesting one from a script point of view is some previous event being referenced a lot. Adds a bit of intrigue to any plot without needing to spend the money showing it. In Snowpiercer, there was previously a rebellion called the McGregor Riots, in which a brash upstart Irishman swaggered up to the front carriage. Of course not. All we know is that apparently so many bullets were fired in this rebellion that they've now run out.
You've got no bullets!
Snowpiercer uses another trope where it references the past. This is one where our hero did bad things that they regret. The most modern version of this is the constant references to Black Widow's red in her ledger in the MCU. She was a stone cold killer and now she's a hero. Still doesn't explain how she can help with super beings though. Snowpiercer, being a dark and grim movie, has Chris Evans Curtis breaking down when he talks about what he had to do when he was so hungry and what he now knows. It's a killer. But the big thematic trope that brings us on home is pretty obvious. It's the trope of the movie being completely set in one location. We've got examples like the excellent Buried with my favourite Ryan Reynolds. Stone cold classics like 12 Angry Men and Alien are perfect examples of this. Well, what do you know it? Our final film, 2022's Bullet Train, is not only set in one place, it's also on a train like Snowpiercer. So this is an adaptation of a novel this time, proper literature darling, and it's directed by David Leitch and produced by Antoine Fuqua, no less. Callback. Leitch himself is a legend. He was stunt double for Brad Pitt and Jean-Claude Van Damme himself, then moved into directing, kicking off by co-directing John Bloody Wick with Chad Stahelski, another former stuntman. He then did Atomic Blonde, Deadpool 2 and Hobbs & Shaw. He's got action and action comedy chops then. Speaking of stunts in this movie, Brad Pitt, according to the stunt coordinator, did 95% of his own stunts. He's been taking a leaf out of Tom Cruise's book, it seems. Great ensemble cast here. Brad Pitt, Joey King, Zazie Beetz, Hiroyuki Sanada, Brian Tyree Henry, Aaron Taylor Johnson's having loads of fun here.
I'll smash my head through a brick wall.
And he's soon to be Craven the Hunter. Very exciting. Bad Bunny, thankfully going by his real name here, Benito Antonio Martinez Ocasio. See Aquafina, it can be done. However, there is a bit of an issue here when, despite it being set in Japan with Japanese source material characters, there's a bit of Hollywood whitewashing going on, which, like in Raya and the Last Dragon previously, is a bit of a shame. We've got Karen Fukuhara, who's actually Japanese, from The Excellent Boys, and she's doing absolutely nothing in this film. I also have a bit of an issue with the ridiculous amount of fridging here. There's a few too many characters dealing with murdered wives. But look, Bullet Train is a load of fun. Great fights. Brad Pitt and Taylor Johnson are genuinely funny, as well as the latter having loads of fun as a proper cockney. So let's do some non-spoilery tropes, because there's a few that would actually spoil things. First up is kind of an unintentional trope in the dodgy accent department. As much as I love Brian Tyree Henry, he's gold in Atlanta.
Oh, I know who you are. You're the guy who shot someone.
Well, it ain't really happened like that.
He's the voice of Miles Morales' dad in the best Spider-Man movie ever.
Got for copy.
But his accent here is terrible.
If there was a gun under this table, yeah? I'd Be as dead as that kid over there.
Joey King is better, but not by much.
I can't, my backpack is stuck.
It's a bit like Charlie Hunnam in Green Street.
He ran the GSE in the early 90s when I was coming up.
But, I mean, nothing is as bad as Tarantino's Aussie accent in Django Unchained.
You be damn Blackie, we're not bandits.
Next trope we have is a briefcase full of money playing a role. It's a weapon here, actually. This is played excellently in Dodgeball. Oh, and there's one in Kill Bill with a bloody black mamba in it. It's not thematic though, otherwise we would have linked it. A broader trope for the plot of Bullet Train is the simple plan that just escalates out of control. The Coen brothers love this, notably in The Big Lebowski, Fargo. Ladybug here just wants to get the briefcase and get off the train at the next stop. But it escalates just a bit. The final trope for today, though, is the reluctant warrior. Ladybug is an assassin, but he's reformed. He doesn't want to fight, and throughout he's generally against putting these skills to use.
I will find you.
Why?
I will ruin your life the way you ruin mine.
Dude, I don't even know you!
The classic version of this is Mr. Miyagi. Fighting is the last resort for him.
Fighting always last answer to problem.
But if he has to, I've got to mention Bruce Banner in the MCU here.
And here comes this guy. Spends his life avoiding the fight because he knows he'll win.
So my friends, we've done it. A trope-tacular episode connecting Watchmen to Bullet Train with just the tropes, fam. As always, let me know in the comments your favourite example of any of these tropes. Lord knows I've only mentioned a few. And look, if you've come this far, you might as well like this video.
Great job.
And chuck in a subscribe, yeah? This is top quality content. And look, if you like this trope heavy content too, then let me know and I'll focus more on this. I'm still figuring out what we're doing here. But for now, thank you for your time. I'm Danny Baker. This is 6 Degrees, just the tropes, fam. And I'll see you later.
Peace out.